Awesome. Well, I
Right.
think we can get started. Yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in to our fourth installment of our community call. My name is Grant, and I work as the head of business development over at Rally. It's been an exciting first month of the year for us, and so we're really excited to talk about those new exciting things we got going on. Today on the agenda, we have new creators, which Rob will address, new advisors, which Mahesh will take care of, KPIs over to Mike as usual, and then we have a new slide to talk about, which is our community proposals on Snapchat. So that's really exciting. So Meet will take care of that, and then we'll head over to Ray for the developer ecosystem and the new bounties, the dev program, and then we have our special guest today, which is Ian Lee, and I'll give him an introduction when that time comes. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that we all remember to keep ourselves on mute. Any questions that you may have, please put them in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end of the call. And so I'll go and throw it over to Rob.
Awesome. So our new creator this week that's adopted the Weibo coin is a streamer named Vibe. He's a StarCraft 2 pro player and variety streamer that does coaching, educational content, and has also started running community competitions. He has a really ride or die fan base that's been following him for the last 12-ish years of his StarCraft career. So since launching last Friday, he's got 67 supporters in his coin, about 100,000 rally backing him, and that's $4,700 in external platform purchases, coming in. So that's actual fiat or crypto transaction directly into his coin. And so far, he's been having a pretty massive success by running both FFA events that have a small donation buy-in that he gives half of the overall buy-in to the winner take all. And he's also offering one-on-one wagers with his community, which is traditionally something that he hasn't done until now. He has a great way to do that direct transaction. He's also having a massive FFA finals where from the daily games that he's holding, the winners get to go into that, and then on Sunday they'll also be able to get in for additional donations. Total, he's got something like 300 or 400 just in straight up donos through that program, which is pretty awesome. So make sure to follow him on Twitter. Check out his Twitch channel. He also has a Discord with a private coin channel as well. Try to tune in for the finals if you can. That's it.
Awesome. Yeah, which is really exciting. We tried to actually get Vibe on today, but I think that might be something we do next week, right, Rob? Which is really exciting. So we'll have Vibe hopefully on next week to pick his brain on what he's doing with his coin and how it's been very successful. So thank you. Awesome. So we'll go and throw it over the next slide. And I believe Mahesh is next.
Yeah, so I wanted to just give a overview of two of our advisors, actually our first two advisors that have been brought on through the community treasury after we launched on mainnet. So we have other advisors that we work with, but I wanted to take the time to go through two really awesome advisors that I work really closely with to give a brief background about themselves and how we're working with them. And so start with Jeremiah.
Thank you all for your approval. I'm very grateful for that, and I'll work really hard for the community. Right now, I've been in Clubhouse for since June 6th, and I was one of the early adopters, so I'm networked with the influencers there. I have brokered relationships with those that are on the special follow list who have followers over 500K, and I'm working close with Mahesh for a program, and we'll give you more news when it comes time to announce how we will be onboarding them and growing them. It's not just limited to Clubhouse. I am involved in other social channels and influencers and speakers elsewhere, and we'll bring those on as well. And then lastly, the broader thing is there's a whole class of other social audio websites emerging, there's over 12 of them, and each of them will have their own creators and influencers with great followers. And so that's a space that I'll continue to track. So thank you again.
Jeremiah, actually, I don't know if everybody knows your background, but it might be worth spending a second on your background and all the cool things that you've done.
Thanks. That's kind. So I always want to be in the forefront of new media, and I was one of the first folks to launch social media at a corporation back in 2005. We launched blogs. We're the first 10 companies to go. So I've always been pushing it, how do we use new media? I was hired at Forrester Research, which is a respected firm, to be one of the first social content and social computing analysts covering that space. And I wrote a number of reports, and then I've launched a number of research firms. I do create content on my own, and been on Twitter. I was on in the first few months. And so I also have a creator coin now too, which just got turned on about an hour ago. So don't ask me exactly how it works. I'm getting up to speed. And so I will use that and and also invite my network of other business influencers at the right time, probably in a phase 2 or 3 after this. We focus on Clubhouse first. And so that's my background. I want to be at the forefront of how people use technology. Lastly, most of my clients, for those who are in biz dev, are Fortune 500 marketers and innovation teams. So when it's time to open up those markets, I'll be here to help.
Awesome.
Cool. Thank you. Perfect. And let's kick it over to Danilo.
Hi, guys. Hope everybody can hear me fine. And it's great to meet you all. I have had the pleasure to connect with a few guys already in the past, and very happy to see a bigger crowd today. Quick background on myself. I'm half Swiss, half Italian. Kind of spent all my life in Europe, but I've always been interested in the technology happening overseas, right? So I'm a big fan of all the stuff that's happening in the Valley. And when I came across Rally via a friend, I thought this was a very interesting project because personally, I've been in the social media community and crypto space for a very long time. I got into crypto early in 2012 via poker, actually, and left the industry for about 4 years, and then only came back in 2017 when the whole world was looking at crypto. And and I've been an investor and a marketer in the space since. And for me, I think there's various different things that excite me about Rally, but first and foremost, it was actually the team. This is how I heard about the type of people that are behind Rally, what their background is. I actually also saw Kevin's YouTube video, so thought it was just super cool what you're doing, and I'm definitely excited to be involved and help. I think for everyone to kind of like be informed about like what I'm helping Mahesh do is try to understand, let's say, the realm of the crypto content creators, right? Because it's very, very different than the traditional, let's say, gaming or lifestyle or other type of content creators that exist in the world of social media. And also because in crypto itself there's about 3-4 types of content creators, right? There's various different platforms, like everybody of course knows, Telegram is a big one, Twitter of course is huge, YouTube is there, and Discord is there. And there's various types of content creators in all these 4 different platforms. And so I think for Rally, the opportunity lies in, first of all, understanding how each of them works and why Rally can be relevant in that specific medium. And it won't happen overnight, right? Of course, it takes time. I think the idea of creator coins is awesome. I guess there is different profiles of content creators that can adopt this in a very engaging way, right? So not necessarily from a monetization standpoint, but from a community engagement platform standpoint. And I think that's something that in discussions also with Mahesh we've realized is pretty attractive, because people understand if they can engage the communities, well, then that helps them grow as a content creator. So super excited about how everything is unfolding with Rally. I do think we're all at the beginning of this revolution. I am thinking maybe myself as well one day to give this a try. I'm not an influencer, I'm not a content creator, I'm more like the guy behind the scenes, but I'm keen to learn from all of you and hopefully be able to provide strategy and overall ideas and feedback.
Cool. Thank you, Danilo. Much appreciated.
Thanks.
All right.
So we'll throw it over to Mike for the KPIs.
All right. So this week, the second week of this kind of new format. So now that we've got a second week of data, I've started to put a few more trend percentages here. But on the main net, unchanged in terms of 77.3 million Rally that's circulating supply. There are a few more million Rally that will probably get released pretty soon, mostly due to catching up from sidechain operations on the reward side. So keep an eye out for that. 14.7 million in total liquidity. This is actually down. We'll talk about that in a second, but I'm not too surprised why a bunch of these numbers are down, just because of a couple different things, which I'll talk about in a second. 745,000 in the community treasury, up 23%. Again, I think this is mostly a continuation. There goes one of my earphones. Continuation of a decent increase in the amount of deposits in our YDVs over the past couple weeks, although it's come down a little bit in the past few days. And then $30,000 of bridge in. I think you'll see the bridge in numbers and a bunch of the sidechain numbers are lower this week compared to last week, just because we didn't have any major releases of new creators, unlike a week ago was still the week where we had released both Genji and PTM coins. So we were still seeing some uplift last week that we didn't see this week. On the side chain, 5.4 million rally back in credit coins up nominally. This is where you start seeing some of the decrease. 62,000 versus I think last week was around $100,000 of daily volume. Again, I think mostly just because of less activity due to those new creators now being at least a week and a bit old. Total coin holders is up. Buys and converts are down almost exactly the same. So you'll see a lot of the stuff bridge in, and the buys and the converts are all basically down the exact same percentages. Again, because there's not those two new creators coming in, which will create a bunch of buys. Although we did have that guy Vibe, the Vibe coin go live, which, as you saw from Rob's numbers, he was $4,000 worth of buys, so he was almost a third of this week's past buys. A decent increase in donations this week, I think, also again due to Vibe doing his tournaments and stuff like that, and then bridge outs and redeems are both down comparatively to last week. So I think that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. We will then send it over to Amit, and he'll go over to community proposals right now.
Thanks, Grant. I think it's the next slide in this deck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think on the community proposals side, one of the things we wanted to start highlighting is just we're starting to put some interesting things through the governance process. And this one in particular related to the YDVs is probably the most material change to our supply emissions since we launched the token back in October. I know a lot of you guys have been with us since pretty close to the start. So if you remember, the yield delegating vaults were really our first and only mechanism in the early days to distribute Rally to the community. The idea behind these was they wrap Yearn vaults and emit Rally in exchange for the earnings they generate. The earnings they generate are transferred to the community treasury, and they're used for various things that the community has chosen to fund, primarily to date, things like new creator launches and so on. So like I said, with this change, it was one of the most material changes to the supply schedule as emissions from the YDVs since launch had grown in line with the deposits into those vaults. We had seen those emissions increase from about 100,000 Rally a day to a little bit over 1.5 million Rally per day in kind of the recent week before the proposal went in. And that was also during a time where the price of Rally increased from about 6 cents to 35 cents. So you can do the math between those emissions and the price and just kind of get a sense of the magnitude of new Rally we were adding to the market through this mechanism. One of the things we noticed is as the spread between the value delegated to the treasury and the value represented by the emitted Rally increased, behavior from those deposits shifted substantially towards short-term profit motivation. For folks that kind of followed it closely, you could see that the deposits in the YDVs ran up from a baseline of around 12 million for the trailing 3 months or so to just shy of 50 million within the last 2 weeks. So with about 50 million deposited, 1.5 million Rally emitted per day, and that price kind of spiking up as high as 35 cents, the behavior with these YDVs wasn't really consistent with long-term sustainable building of the community treasury. Really, it was just introducing a very short-term profit opportunity for a handful of depositors. It wasn't really aligned with kind of the long-term building and the growth of the treasury that we design here. So if you remember back to the launch of the YDVs, the anchor that we had initially set was always trying to target somewhere in the vicinity of 2x the underlying Yearn yield. So something generous for the people who are supporting the project, a little bit in addition to what you might get from the underlying vaults that they wrap, but nothing as high as sort of the 10 to 12x the underlying yields that it had grown to in the corresponding almost 250 to 300% APY. So this proposal was advocating kind of a return to that original intent, monthly resets of the multipliers that control the emissions to bring it back down closer to that 2x range. So kind of advocating a range of about 1.5 to 3x, see if we can bring those total emissions down and see if we can kind of return the behavior to where the interest is more in terms of building the treasury, supporting the project long-term, instead of an immediate kind of flip of the tokens emitted. Because it was a massive change, because a lot of the people are kind of enjoying these high yields, it was, I guess, the most controversial change we've had to date. largest voting activity on our snapshot proposal, kind of a record number of no votes. But it did end up carrying with more than, I think, 85% of the vote in favor. A little bit on the turnout there, I think it's the highest that I've seen on our governance proposal. So it's nice. It's a little bit masked by the quadratic voting. So, the rally voting power that you see on Snapshot, translating that into the actual tokens that were supporting those votes, you can see roughly 11 to 12 million rally participated in the vote. So we're talking about 15-ish or so percent of the total circulating supply, which is pretty impressive turnout for these community proposals. We tend to see in the vicinity of like 1 to 3% on a lot of larger protocols. So nice to see that much involvement in the governance. Really nice to see a lot of the dissenting opinions. I mean, I think there's a valid argument to be made for kind of being a little bit short-term greedy, trying to get as many people in as possible. So, a lot of people had valid arguments in favor of a no vote. I personally was in favor of the yes to try to move it in that right to longer term focused direction. But it was nice to see the discussion, the disagreement, and see the large turnout for the vote and the commitment to kind of advancing the protocol through governance. So this proposal passed, I believe, yesterday, and the changes went into effect. The YDVs will kind of settle into an APY somewhere in the 50-ish% range over the next week or so. So obviously, any questions on that, I can answer them later, just know in the chat, but just wanted to highlight the latest on the governance side.
Awesome. Thank you, Meet. And I just want to piggyback as well on our snapshot, because I know this is the first time we've addressed snapshot and rather community proposals. I do encourage everyone, if you have not, definitely take a look at our snapshot pretty frequently. You can find it in our Discord as well as our rally.io site. We do have numerous creator proposals going up pretty frequently now. So it's really cool to take a look at their socials and as well as other information regarding new creators and other proposals that are going to go up regarding governance as well. So just to remind everyone, we'll go ahead and throw it over to Ray for the bounty program and developer ecosystem.
Thanks, Grant. Well, speaking of proposals, one of the dev community topics this week is about upcoming proposals for, we haven't quite named the program yet, but trying to think of a way in the community to pair developers with creators and kind of fund through the treasury dedicated projects. So we're starting to see an influx of creators and creators with good ideas on how to use their creator coin. We've often seen in the community the two ways that creators try things with their tokens. They either get the idea from someone, a sort of a push method. We do a ton of thinking and research in the area and try to inform people and give them good ideas on what we think can be tried. And then there's the pull method where a creator says, I want to do this thing. Can you guys support me in that on Rally or with creator coins? And sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's labor intensive, but that doesn't require technology. And sometimes it requires technology. And so in this case, what we're going to try to do is pair something like 5 to 10 projects for a particular use case. Let's call it 5 or 10 different use cases, with a creator signing up to be the guinea pig to try their coin using that tool or that project. And so then we're going to pair the scope of those projects with developers in order to do it. So these will be much larger grants than, say, what the bounties have been to this point. And they'll be much more integrated into the experience that the creators are doing than some of the tooling that's been built so far in the community. Really like this approach because it gives a lot of tests in tandem, and it gives a lot of one-off trials for creators doing what they do best, being creative. So this is how we're going to try to facilitate that. So in terms of proposals, very much expect to look out for options to dedicate some funds to try out a project with a particular creator. If it's successful or feels like it's reproducible, then the finishing of that test will be to turn whatever the work product was into something that can be reused, whether that's open sourcing the code, deploying it in a way that anybody can use, any coin can be signed up for, or be given to a creator if they've got their own dedicated developer to run their own version of it and build on it and fork it. So really trying to intertwine the developer community with the creator community so that we can get the best out of both sides. I think the golden path of this is where developers start seeing opportunities to build businesses around these projects that they've helped create, and then serve creators independent of even the Rally community. So that's what we're trying to get to. So that's proposals. A little bit of news around the dev community. We've got up new bounties. Phelps did a good job of cranking out some new descriptions of things we want to try with the Discord bot, with some OBS overlays, and Twitch bots. Some of the next batch of bounties will also be influenced by these things that we're hearing back from creators in the big wave that's beginning, as Kevin says, the beginning of the tidal wave. Getting a lot of good input, so we're going to try to take that and infuse it into the community bounties as well. So look out for that. Deep linking went live, so I think I talked about that last week, but now there are URL strings where you can land inside of a creator's page and with a donation or a send and a message already pre-populated, as long as you're logged in. So we'll be documenting how to use that. It's not, you don't navigate there, like it doesn't show the URL in the search like it would if if the routing matched that, but it will work. Like the site will slurp that up and it'll direct the user. That's a pretty big improvement for connecting experiences off the Rally site to wherever the creator is sending traffic from. And so it's a very small step, but it's a good step in trying to integrate the creator coins all over, as opposed to just making Rally a destination, which isn't really the point. So we'll be documenting that, and the dev community can make little widgets and tools to quickly send users right to the place where they can, conduct their commerce with the creator. And there's some additional product improvements around the creator coin send and purchase flows coming up, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next week or two.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray. Appreciate that feedback and input. We now have our guest speaker to this week is going to be Ian Lee. Ian Lee is a crypto investor. He's a builder at IDEO Labs, and as well as former Bitcoin and as well as City Ventures. So we're really excited to hear from Ian, and I'll go ahead and pass it over to you. I think Ian might be on mute.
Hey guys, can you hear me? Perfect. Okay. Dealing with a leaky roof. So anyway, I'm going to present my screen here, and I have a quick presentation. Quick question for you guys. How long do you want this to be? Just so I can time box myself.
We set this meeting to 11:45, but please take your time.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to go through this in a pretty abbreviated fashion so that, we have a chance to have a chat afterwards. It's probably an hour-long presentation, but I'm going to accelerate through it. So, hi, my name is Ian. Been in crypto for 6+ years. I was a former head of Bitcoin and blockchain at Citibank starting in 2014. Helped IDEO start this investment fund, which I'll quickly talk about, and had the opportunity to meet the Rally team and get behind them at this point maybe 3 years ago. It's been just awesome. I also program Solidity and other crypto languages, so deeply in love with this space. I want to just quickly cover a few things like who are we, which I'm not going to spend too much time on, why I think crypto is so exciting, and in particular, why crypto is so relevant to the creator economy, and how, in my opinion, it's actually about the future of work, which is a really, really big idea and an important problem for us to solve. So IDEO is a 40-year-old company. I'll just flip through some pictures. It became famous in the 80s for designing the first mouse for Apple, the first laptop in 81, helping HBO transition to streaming about 10 years ago, autonomous vehicles, digital health, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, we started this crypto division 5 years ago and have been working with top projects ever since. And it's been so much fun that we started investing about 2 years ago. So what I really want to talk about is why is it so exciting and why is it so relevant, and this space and Rally in particular. So Bitcoin, over 10 years ago at this point, imagine this future where it didn't rely on central intermediaries like Citibank and other employers that I had been a part of or I've worked for. And what we are now seeing is that the decentralization of these different tech or fintech stacks is profound. And you can read in the headlines with what's happening with Wall Street Bets to just see how the world is going in this direction towards decentralized infrastructure, and why that's actually a better thing for people and the world. I mean, don't get me wrong, lots of challenges, but this is where the world's going. It's just inevitable. And there are significant structural advantages of crypto, ranging from the fact that it's fully global, it's completely open, But most importantly, and I think this is where it relates to the creator economy, is that number 5, it's fundamentally user and community owned. It's not owned by a few number of, venture capital investors or, wealthy individuals. These technologies and these platforms have the chance to be completely user and community owned. And that's a big idea, and that's better for the world, in my opinion. Not the least of which is the fact that these decentralized platforms are showing the kinds of level of improvements or more that other kind of technological innovations in the past number of decades have introduced into the world. And so in the same way that AWS reduced the cost of delivering web services and deploying web services by 100x, these platforms like Ethereum and Rally and others, they are reducing, in Ethereum's case, the cost of deploying fintech services by 10,000x. That is massive. And what that means is it can start to reach the longer tail of the world. DeFi is obviously having a huge run up. We've been investing in it for a very long time. The reason that I bring this up is because we feel the same way about this space that we call crypto media, crypto social, and the creator economy, which Rally is squarely in. We think that this is potentially the next big breakout or the big breakout area of crypto in the next 2 to 3 years. Because crypto is not about fintech or just censorship resistant money. It's actually a part of this broader historical arc, in our opinion, of this constant sort of balance between centralization and decentralization of technology over many, many decades. And we think that we're at the beginnings of a re-decentralization of the internet, which has largely been centralized over the last decade around big players like Google, Facebook, Instagram, these kinds. Okay. And so how does this relate to kind of like Rally? Let's get a little bit more specific. In today's world, the internet, content, media, assets are built on top of platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and whatnot. They are owned by these platforms. And I don't need to tell all of you that, that, very intimately. In tomorrow's world, with decentralization and crypto platforms are going to be built on assets. And this was actually inspired by Jacob Horn, another founder in the crypto space. But this is where the world's going. And this idea that the internet itself is going to be inverted, including social media platforms and things like that, is profound. And Rally is a big part of that. So I want to quickly talk about the creator economy and why I'm so passionate about this. Because in my opinion, it's actually about the future of work. So creators are people like you and I'm sure, and many people that are starting to come onto Rally. They are people that shape the world. They shape culture, they shape preferences, they shape behaviors. And this is not a new thing. I mean, it's been around forever, right, throughout human history. But as technology platforms change, creators also change. And the powers that creators have starts to evolve, right? So whereas in when there was like radio, it was a certain type of creator, then there was television, then there was like mobile, enabled, and then streaming and stuff like that. And the creators, new creators popped up. And the question is that going to change? And the answer is very much likely yes, with crypto and platforms like Rally. And as kind of technology has evolved and as these platforms have evolved, the types of creators have changed over time. So physical to digital, but also it's started to democratize who can become a creator, right? So YouTube, blogging platforms, Instagram, TikTok, like it's enabled, people at pretty kind of like the low, the enthusiast freelancer levels to start to become creators and move up this sort of like stack, right? And Rally and these decentralized platforms are purely a part of that. The creator economy is growing and it's becoming a bigger part of the world and the economy. And this is what I mean by the future of work, because, traditional jobs are just going away. That's just a trend that's been happening for a long time. And so this new form of work in the form of creations, like whether it's artistic or whatever, this is going to become a bigger part of the economy. And it's happening, with Web 2. You see all these different services that have popped up in the last, decade plus and many more to come. But there's a problem with them. And the problem with them, just like every other Web 2 platform out there, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or whatever, is that they're optimized for attention, popularity, and advertisements. And that works pretty well, in terms of like growing a following and whatnot. But at some point, it starts to break for a lot of people, right? Where the value becomes disproportionately captured by the centralized company as opposed to by the people that actually helped build and sustain the value and growth of the network, which are the creators and the fans and the community. And so there's this big imbalance, right, between Web 2 platforms. And frankly, it's not like Web 2 platforms are the enemy. It's just that they're not optimized for what I believe, and I think we all believe, is fundamentally better for creators and their communities. And that's where Web3 comes in, which is it has an opportunity to unlock this next phase of the creator economy. I actually have been saying recently that what I believe crypto and platforms like Rally can do is start to serve the creator economy's middle class, emerging middle class. Because right now, you're either Kanye West and you don't need kind of these platforms or whatever, you make a lot of money or whatnot through various other means, or you're kind of like just hustling, trying to make it. And it's really difficult to kind of like sustain yourself in my view. And that's what this technology can do is create a more healthy and sustainable economy for creators and their communities. And so and this is my last couple of slides, is that what I have a strong belief, and we have a strong belief is going to happen, is actually the pairing of Web 2 and Web 3, where Web 2 is actually used as a tool for what it's really good at, which is building followings, building your brand, maybe starting to generate some income. But it then is also paired with Web3 crypto platforms like Rally that enable people, creators, their communities to start to build essentially value and equity in themselves or their brands and their communities, and unlock and engage their communities or enable their communities to engage with each other in ways that are not possible on Web 2. And, Rally's been a pioneer of this, for years now. I mean, way ahead of the curve. And I think the timing is perfect for this because, you can just see kind of the zeitgeist going around right now. This is, someone that I'm a big fan of, Amanda Nunez, but like you can see how creators are starting to use the pairing of Web 2 and Web 3, i.e. Rally and these crypto platforms in ways that make their start to set themselves up for a better living, a better life, a better business, reinvesting in themselves. And that's super, super exciting. So hopefully, you guys were able to digest that. Feel free to connect with me offline if you'd like afterwards. But at this point, maybe I'll just open it up.
Awesome. Ian, that was amazing. Thank you for that presentation. If anybody has questions, please type them in the chat for Ian. You can find Ian on Twitter and as well as, of course, our Discord as well. So any questions, please type in chat.
Surprised I got through that so quickly.
Very nice.
I have a question for you. First of all, that was a fantastic presentation. I thought you did a fantastic way of summarizing kind of historical context as well as what's happening in the broader sort of economy of creators, making new things that people care about. The question I have for you is in the crypto space, we consistently wrestle with how much should we, on the spectrum of decentralization and total trustlessness for managing your own assets, to on the other side of the equation, a lot of these creators who may not be technical, may be interested in crypto, but not having any crypto experience yet. We sort of constantly are struggling with where is the right line to draw in terms of how much full trustlessness do we expose to the creator and their fans, and we try to balance that within the usability of getting new people into crypto and helping them get onboarded. So I'm curious as to your thought as you think about this kind of broader shift that's happening in the ecosystem, the different paths that crypto projects can take to help these creators and their fan communities be successful. And wonder if you have any thoughts on kind of different approaches and what you see as trends and to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, you and I talk about this all the time. It's like It is a hard problem that you are working through, and the Rally team and the community together, and we are all part of a broader crypto community. Oh no, is my mic on? Okay, yes, okay, cool. That we are working on together, and it's gonna take years. I guess my view on it is, I grew up in the Bitcoin world like 6 years ago, and they had they have in some cases a very like opinionated purist kind of view that everything needs to be trustless, right, and fully decentralized and whatnot. And I mean, there's a lot of, I think, merit to that, and I think that can be true. It also can be true, though, that there are what IDEO and we would consider as bridges to the real world, or abstractions or interfaces to the real world that may exist on a spectrum from fully decentralized to partially decentralized to more centralized. Perfect example of that in sort of the Bitcoin space is Coinbase, right? Coinbase is a centralized company on top of a fully decentralized network that is Bitcoin, and that's fine because Coinbase, has its purpose, and Bitcoin also has a big purpose, and they're actually very harmonious. So I think that as it relates to like all of crypto, but the creator economy as well, and the creator space as well, is that we're going to see the same thing. So, there are going to be things that fundamentally need to be fully decentralized and trustless, potentially like networks, at the network level or protocol level, like Rally. There are going to be things that are going to be needed in the middle that bridge kind of the real world to the fully decentralized world, whether those are like specific pieces of tooling or whatnot to, make it more usable, essentially, like, because, frankly, creators don't want to have to learn how to program, to do what it is that they actually are good at or love to do. And then there's going to be centralized kind of products, experiences, interfaces that, just completely abstract everything underneath, kind of like Coinbase does, for creators to do what they do and make a living and grow their following and grow their kind of brands and stuff. So that's kind of like a very long way of just saying that I think that it's more of a mosaic than like a monolith, like, one versus the other. I think, what you guys are doing with the Rally and the community is doing at Rally is a part of that, and actually like very much pioneering this, because for example, DeFi is one of those weird things that is sort of this like self-contained ecosystem where it can like kind of live completely natively, where assets can move between protocols, and maybe they never need to leave the kind of DeFi ecosystem. Whereas in the creator space, I mean, creators, like, they live in the real world. They don't live in the fully digitally native world, and they don't live, they don't run their business based on and protocols or life based on protocols. So there are going to absolutely have to be abstractions and interfaces that make it easy as it is to like build a website today with WordPress or whatever, right? And so I think that's going to happen, and I'm really excited about that. I mean, even if you think about IDEO's history, like 40 years ago when we were designing the mouse, right? The mouse was an interface to help regular people like your mom, your grandma, kids interface with a computer, which, it's hard to imagine. But back then, the personal computer was this really difficult piece of technology that you had to have like a PhD in to operate. And so like, there are going to be many, many opportunities and examples of, the equivalent of quote unquote the mouse for crypto, especially in the creator space. And that's what's needed to make this, honestly, that's what's needed to make crypto realize its full potential. Like, it can't exist solely in the fully trustless like space. It has to impact the real world. And when it does, that's going to be profound, and it's going to be incredibly valuable.
Awesome.
If you guys built the mouse of the computer, you guys should build the mouse of the crypto space. So I think that's up to IDEO to do.
Well, now we yeah. Well, I mean, we're working with great people like the Rally team and others to just support them in doing that. They've got a lot of those ideas already, so we're just happy to be involved.
Amazing.
Awesome. I'll open it up for any more questions. Ramsey has a question. I'm going to read this out loud. Could you guys talk about the new proposal on Snapchat to change creator coin restrictions? Amit, I'm not sure if you're still there, but if you want to possibly tackle that one.
Yeah, sure. pull up the proposal so I can hit on all the points I don't remember off the top of my head. But I think at a high level, Ramsey, the what we were seeing with the initial restrictions, there was basically one restriction in place. It was a flow-based restriction that kind of we started very conservatively. Like it limited the max amount a creator could transact in of their own coin at any time to about 0.25% of the total circulating supply, and they'd accumulate allowance against that maximum as activity accrued in their community. And so if things were happening very real time, if they were transacting on the order of $10 to $100 quite frequently, it would generally have kind of the effects that we desired. But it doesn't quite fit the more natural workflows. What you might actually see is a creator accumulate a few $1,000s of income through the course of a month and want to choose to make a larger transaction weekly, monthly, quarterly, or so on. So that 0.25% we were just seeing was too low to meet some of the creator needs. So bumping that max cap up substantially higher while still generally rate limiting, flow limiting their ability to move in and out of their own economy was kind of a big part of that. The next piece of that, I know we'd never really touched on this, but when a new creator coin goes live, there's a Genesis supply allocated to the creator. Up until now, that Genesis supply has been basically untouchable, kind of monitoring it, seeing what happens. But we do want to allow that to kind of vest into usage over time. So that's the next big part of it. The third part, what we're seeing is basically a lot of individual actors within the community have the ability to accumulate stakes within a creator coin that are on par with the amount the creator themselves has. And we want these coins to be more about utility, usage, novel use cases than pure speculation. And so adding a bit of control to general users when they're accumulating very large stacks of these creator coins is designed to ensure that they stay about utility and usage. The fourth one, similar to kind of those large users moving in and out, I think as you accumulate a large stack, the amount that you can impact the liquidity pool that drives the automated market behind each creator coin, the amount you can impact that liquidity pool starts to increase. So kind of in pairing with the idea of flow controls, the idea that the more of that liquidity pool you affect, we introduce a small fee that then benefits the creator. So if you're moving around a lot in an economy, the idea is that those large movements are taxed slightly to the benefit of the creator. And then the last part of that is just we've put some ranges here that I think make sense and are based on the data we're seeing and the usage we're seeing. But we want to make sure we have some room to optimize within that. So the last point there is on just setting some collars and giving the development team some flexibility to move between those. But yeah, generally tailored to kind of get healthy usage of the creator coins.
I mean, Ram, do we appreciate your question? That was a good question. Awesome. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you to our advisors that spoke on today's call. Jeremiah, congratulations on launching your coin again. Thank you as well for speaking today. What a presentation by Ian. These guest speakers keep on bringing the heat every week. So we're really excited for next week. We also have a special guest next week as usual. But that concludes our fourth installment of the community call. Everyone has a good Friday. We should have some more community proposals going up in the next couple days. So we will touch base back again next week. Awesome. Thank you, guys.